Hi, it's Baz. Someone told me the other day that I was probably the only person on YouTube who had 50 plus years of experience with anxiety. And, I'm sure there are people alive who've had more experience with anxiety than I have, but maybe I'm the only YouTuber with that many years of anxiety. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you my story of anxiety. It began in infancy. And, I always say that I was born raging against the machine. I was a colicky baby. If you don't know what colic is, I was born in the late 50s, 1957. And formula in those days wasn't as refined as it is now. And apparently I didn't like it. It upset my entire gastrointestinal tract, and it made me gassy, I guess, and gave me stomach cramps and pain. So therefore I cried all the time. And as I became a little bit older, I developed a hypersensitivity to textures. It's why to this day, all you'll ever see me wear are V-neck t-shirts and scrubs, because I refuse to wear a dress shirt. I can't stand the texture against my skin. We'll go into that in another video. But it also, all of these experiences in my infancy and toddlerhood led to me developing certain fears that would follow me throughout my childhood. In my childhood, in my grade school days, I was bullied because I was so small in stature. Up until about the 10th grade, I was the shortest person in my grade. Even if there were, several fourth grade classes, I was always the shortest person there. I really didn't reach, that growth spurt in puberty until I was about 16. And so I was bullied for a long time because of that. I was also bullied by a teacher, and I'll tell you a quick story to illustrate how these experiences in our childhood can lead to anxiety and persistent anxiety even into adulthood. So I was in 5th grade, I was about 11 years old, and we were just coming back from winter break, which was typically 2 weeks. And this was in the Houston, Texas area at the time. I now live in Washington after living in California for 50 years or so. But this was in Texas, and in about 1967-ish. And we were coming back, and it was an indoor school, meaning that the classrooms opened to an indoor hallway. And so therefore there were locked doors leading into the school, and then locked doors leading into the classrooms. And I want you to remember that. So as we lined up in the hallway, in Mrs. Frazier, outside of Mrs. Frazier's classroom, she walked up. She was about 65 at the time, and I'm convinced to this day that she didn't like boys. And she led us into the classroom, and we all found our desks. And I always had a very messy desk. And so I found my way to my desk, which was probably in about the 4th or 5th row back. And it was the kind that you lift up like this, okay, a top opening desk. And so, I saw my mess that I had left there 2 weeks ago, crumpled papers and pencils, and nothing was organized. But what got my immediate attention were 2 teacher's edition textbooks that were inside my desk. And I did like a double take because I had no idea how these textbooks got in my desk. And I didn't know what to think, and I shut my desk as quickly as I could. And at that moment, Mrs. Frazier was at the front of the class near the chalkboard, and she said, "I want to make an announcement. And that announcement is that someone in this classroom has stolen my," and she named the 2 books. I can't remember. I think one of them was a math book. "Stolen my 2 teacher edition books. And I'm going to give them an opportunity right now to admit it. So raise your hand if you're the one who stole the textbooks." I was mortified. I hadn't stolen the textbooks. There was no way I could have. I've told you about the double locked doors and that I was 11 years old. And so this was not the first time I'd been manipulated by this crotchety old woman who I hope, well, I shouldn't say that, but I did hope she died a painful death. Anyway, and she gave us a chance to admit our wrongdoing. No one raised their hand. And then she walked directly over to my desk like she was psychic, opened up the the opening, the top of my desk, and pulled the two textbooks out and held them above her hands like she was, getting stone tablets like Moses on Mount Sinai or something, and waved them in the air as she went back to the front of the classroom and said, "I told you someone had stolen my textbooks." And the entire class was, looking at me. I was crying at that point. I had no idea, really what was going on. And I was sent to the principal's office where I was duly paddled with a wooden weapon, is the only thing I can call it. My parents were called and I was expelled for 3 days. And then when I came back to class, I had to write a letter of apology. I didn't want to because I swore to my parents I had nothing to do with it. I don't think they believed me. And the funny part is that none of the adults in this entire situation ever brought up the fact that the school was locked for 2 weeks at the front door. The classroom was locked inside the school, but nobody ever brought that up. And I didn't think of it at the time, but I had to write this letter admitting guilt. And that stayed with me for a long, long time. And from that moment after, I developed an unhealthy fear of women in authority, as well as all figures of authority. I was terrified by going to junior high after that, going into high school. My dad moved us out of Texas into Southern California in 1970, where I was bullied even more. I was beat up because I was white. I was in a predominantly African-American and Hispanic school. It was the first year of integration of the school districts that were once segregated. So it was a good thing, but no one was adapting well to it, and there was just a lot of classroom violence. And so added on to that, not only that, but my mother had or has a narcissistic personality type. I'm the middle of 3 children, and so being the most sensitive of the 3, I was the easiest one to manipulate. Here's an example. So when we were still in Texas and we were about to move to California, my mother developed a seizure disorder. And for years after that, she would tell me that I needed to behave or else she would have seizures that night. And so that is classic manipulation of a sensitive child by a narcissist. Now, long story short, I have forgiven my mother for her shortcomings. She's 93. She lives in a care home. She has dementia. She remembers none of this. She doesn't remember what she had for breakfast this morning, probably. And I had to move past that if I wanted to, be a healthy adult. And so I have. That followed me into my adulthood. I spent 15 years as a battered spouse in my second marriage. And I understand and empathize with others of both genders who are involved in abusive relationships and how harder than hell it is to leave when you have small children. It took me 15 years to leave. And when I did, I took our son with me. He was 6 years old at the time. He is now 30. He turned 30 this week. And I raised him alone. I got full custody of him. And his mother is clean and sober now and lives in another state and is a good mother to him once again. So that's the silver lining of that. However, all of those experiences in my life conditioned my body to respond to my nervous system's signals with panic episodes, with nervous tics, with anxious thoughts, racing thoughts, overthinking, all of the classic anxiety symptoms that you may have experienced as well. I had a very mosaic career in medicine. I was a physician, and I also went into higher education following 15 years of medicine. And in both of those scenarios, I would work with people who had particular problems with anxiety. And one thing I learned is that there is no cure for anxiety. Anxiety is not a disease. It's a disorder, but it's not a mental illness. Now, there is something called generalized anxiety disorder that I've been labeled with by a psychiatrist when I was seeking medication, and generalized depressive disorder. They're often lumped together, or they're side by side in a diagnosis, because they just figure that you're probably having anxiety because you're depressed, and I don't buy all of that. But and I'm not giving any medical advice here. I no longer have a license to practice. I gave that up a long time ago. So this is not medical advice. I'm just telling you my story. I did seek medication for anxiety, and I have taken an antidepressant in the mornings for probably 5 years now, I guess. I take a Zoloft generic. I don't know if that helps me or not. I talked to my doctor about it about a year ago, and it was a gentleman I like, and I trust him immensely. And I said, I don't know if this is really doing anything for me. Should I just keep taking it? I've been on it for 5 years. And he said, He goes, if it's not hurting you, then I would say keep taking it. So I keep taking it. I also take one other medication, and that's for restless leg syndrome. That feels like there is, stored up energy in my legs every night. And unless I take this pill, it will drive me absolutely nuts. And it happens every night. It's a somatic type of anxiety. Maybe you've had that too. When I say that I've had 50 years of experiences with anxiety, I absolutely mean it. And these are just the highlights of my history with anxiety. So I've tried medication. I tried therapy. Everybody should go to therapy at least once in their life to help them become a better adjusted human, especially if there's something wrong. I think therapy helped me, but it didn't help me with my anxiety. I tried meditation. I still meditate every day. I believe in meditation as a way to stay in the present moment and to confront what's happening now. It is not a treatment for anxiety. So none of those really have cured anxiety, because there is no cure for anxiety. And after 7 decades of life, so I am 68 years old. I like to say I'm 70-ish, because I think I can say that for about 5 years on either side of 70. And what I have come to understand, what finally clicked for me after all of that time, was that I finally understood the role that my own nervous system was playing in evoking my anxiety responses. How and why it triggered these panic episodes, and how and why it triggered my anxious thinking, my racing thoughts at night, perhaps my restless leg syndrome at night. And I developed a practice that I use several times a day. And it is a combination of breath work and vocalization that helps to send the body a signal and helps to recalibrate the nervous system's overstimulation. Now, over the years that we've been alive, we have been conditioned. Our nervous system has been conditioned to be on guard all the time. Here's something you may not know. Our central nervous system, our brain, our fight or flight syndrome, it doesn't know the difference between an attacking Bengal tiger and a snide remark that someone makes about you in the break room. Both are treated by your nervous system as the same threat level. So you can imagine over the years how you've become conditioned to respond to people cutting you off in traffic, okay? And a spouse saying something that cuts deep, or a child rejecting you in some way. Those things really hurt, but I guarantee you a saber-toothed tiger or a Bengal tiger chasing you down in the jungle is going to hurt a lot worse. But our brain doesn't know that. Our central nervous system doesn't know that. And it induces, it evokes a response from our body. Now that's an extreme example, okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is that we have tools available that I teach. I developed this particular practice and I teach it all the time in order to help people understand how their nervous system has been conditioned, how it affects their anxiety responses, and then how they can become not an anxiety sufferer, but transition to become an anxiety influencer, okay? So your dream of being an influencer is finally here, maybe not in the way that you thought it would be, but what better way to address your anxiety than address the root cause of that anxiety? And that is your overstimulated nervous system. Now, I teach a method within my free community that I have. It doesn't cost you a penny. I give it away for free. The membership in the community, as well as what I call the 10-minute silent sound reset practice. There's a video that waits for you there to discover. And I give it away because I want everybody who has been plagued with anxiety to understand that this method is available and that it has worked for me. It has worked for others too. Now for me, I can tell you that even though this is not a scientific type scale, but I have been able to decrease the severity and the duration of my anxiety responses by, I would estimate 70 to 80%, simply because I repeat this practice a few times a day. And here's the kicker. A practice like this is not a quick fix. It is something that you can use in the moment when you're having anxiety, absolutely. But it's not going to take it away like an injection of, a tranquilizer or something. What it does is it sends an immediate signal to your nervous system that it's time to back off a little bit. If you are 50 to 75, then you have spent half a century reinforcing your nervous system to get all hyped out of control and dump all kinds of hormones into your body, stress hormones, to make your body speed up and get all agitated. That's not something you can correct overnight. It takes practice, and that's why I call this the 10-minute silent sound reset practice. It is something that we can practice together. It is something that you can do on your own in almost any situation, in a break room, at your office, in traffic. You can do it anywhere, before you go to bed, when you get up. So it is something that I find to be very effective, and I give it away for free. Now I'm going to put a link to my free community. It's called the Quieter Mind Reset Community, and it's on the school platform. I'll give a link to you below. All you have to do is click the link, click the Join Now button. It doesn't cost you anything to join, and you can, leave at any time too. No harm, no foul. But I want to share that with you and help you begin to understand your anxiety a little bit better and get back to feeling like you used to feel. That's the whole idea here. If I can help you do that, then that'll be just great. All right. So check the link below, and I will see you in the next video.